Hey drifters, DoriJunkie here. Now, I thought I'd make this video on how to tune. I've had a couple of people ask me, can I make a video on it? I'm starting with the VZ210. It's totally pro drift free and I just put the 3 litre in it. So now I've got to make a new tune. So it's totally how it would be. I even put street tyres on it and we'll see how we go. So we go to tuning, custom, we select the tune we want, that's the tune we want, and then we go settings, then we select the track, and just to start off with, I like to take it to Springstone, get a feel for it there, and then after that I take it to a couple of other tracks just to dial the rest of it in. But for now, we'll start off here. Now the first thing I look at, and is important, is you come here to engine and just have a look at this 0 to 100 here on mine because I have it in kilometers per hour, but if you have it in miles per hour it'll see 0 to 60 time, and it's 4.71. Now that's our starting time. It's the time that always, after you make a modification, come back and check. It's a way to check to make sure the modifications you're making are heading in the right direction. You don't want to be making the car slower. So now we'll go to first things first. Once you've done that, you'll decide what tyres am I going to run. Now I'm going to tune this because it's the 3 litre. I'm going to tune it on slicks. So we go here to slicks, tyres, we hit semi-slicks, set that, and you can already see that the 0 to 100 is going down to 3.88. And next thing we do is we just wind in the torque, just bring it in low, maximum. Just a bit more horsepower just to spin the wheels a bit easier. As you can see, rev limiter is right up there, everything else is full, and now we're ready to go. And what I like to do once I've done that is go straight to tyres, rear tyre first, rim diameter. What they give you is usually pretty close to right, if not right, for the car. You can go bigger, you can go lower, but you have to adjust your tyre profile, the one down the bottom here, to match. So 30 series on a 17-inch rim, 30 profile tyres on 17 is pretty small. You can probably afford to go up to a 30, even a 40. And we'll see what just happened to that. It's gone to 3.76. It's a little gain, so we're in the right direction. We'll go to the front one now. We'll do the same with the 40 series. And I like to increase the front pressure, tyre pressure a bit, just to account for the weight of the engine. So the rears are on 200, which is good, and the fronts are at 230. Always have the fronts a little bit heavier, a little bit higher pressure than the rear. And I also like to drop just the profile width down 1 on the front as compared to the rear. Sometimes 2, it just depends on the car. But if you find you are spinning out a bit, the front's not catching as good as it could, you can always increase that tyre profile width 1 and give you a bit more grip on the front. So that's pretty much how I'm going to have my wheels. I'm going to have 17-inch wheels with 40 series profile tyres, 230 kPa in the front, 200 in the rear. This is all just a starting point. I can always come back and change these later on if I need to. Now from here, I always like to go and check the weight of the car. It's 1,090 kilos, so that's pretty light for something that has over 800 horsepower. So next thing we do, go to front suspension. Now we check the weight of the car because I like to set the sway bar according to the weight of the car, a tenth of what it is. So it's 1,090 kilos, a tenth of that is 109. So we just go to here and put a 9 on, done. And the rear, you always want it less than the front so that transmits the grip to the rear of the car. So it was 109, so we're going to go 99 for the rear. And we go back to the front. We just have a look at the ride height here. Just have a look at the clearance on the wheels. Don't want the wheel in the fender. That just looks silly, and it's not right. It just, yeah. So we have a bit of a clearance there. I always like to hit the rear wheels and just have a look at the bottom running board of the car. See if it's straight, parallel with the ground, or if it's car's tilted forward, then you got to bring the front up, or if it's tilted back, you have to bring the rear up or drop the front. But it looks like it's sitting pretty level there, so I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm not going to change the spring height at all. I'm just going to leave it 11.5 rear and 11.5 front. Go back to there, 3.74 our 0 to 100 is. So we really haven't messed anything up there dramatically. Now the wheel toe minus 0.1, sorry, in the front. I tend to run that a lot on all of my tunes. It seems to work. So I tend to leave that alone. Minus 5 degrees camber, that's pretty much maximum. Any more than that and really not enough of the front tires on the ground, and you don't have the response in the corners that you do at about 5 degrees. Caster, now that is the rate at which the car will transition. Dropping the caster, the car will transition slower. Raising the caster, the car should transition faster. Always max my transition out. Acrobat Angle is the amount of angle that you are going to dial in the corners. 70% is probably a bit high. I usually try to start at about 50%, and if I spin out, I'll turn it down, or if I feel the car's not making enough angle, I'll turn it up some. Wheel divergence angle, 65, always have that maximum again. It's the amount of angle that the car will have. And when you're drifting, you want maximum angle. Now the slow bump, slow rebound, fast rebound, I just leave them as they are. They're pretty good set from the Pro Drift Free setup, so just don't fiddle with it. They're all right. Same with spring stiffness. A lot of people think you want the car as stiff as possible. That is wrong. The stiffer the car, the less grip you will have. I tend to leave it pretty much how it comes from Pro Drift Free. 47%, 47 in the front, 53 in the rear. They pretty much set it up so it's balanced front to rear, how they have it. So if you want to increase the spring stiffness, don't go crazy and maximize it. If you want to increase it the same increments front to rear. See, this is 47 in the front, 53 in the rear. So it has 6 more in the rear. So if you increase it, whatever you do, make sure you put 6 more in the rear to try and keep that balance. And you'll notice when you add spring stiffness, the car will raise. So then you have to compensate in the spring size and bring it back down. But always keep an eye on your 0 to 100 time, because if it can blow out by dropping and raising the car, because if the car comes in contact with the wheel, it'll slow the car down. So that's pretty much me for front suspension. That's pretty much done. Now we go to rear suspension, and the same with the slow rebound, fast rebound. Don't touch it, just leave it as it is. Wheel camber, negative 3 degrees in the rear. That's pretty much maxed out. I wouldn't go anymore. Leave it, that's fine. Same as the wheel toe, 0 wheel toe in the rear. The cars with the engine swaps really don't need it. If your car does struggle to drift a bit quicker, if the caster's not enough to make it speed up the transition, then you can always add a bit of wheel toe in the rear, and then yeah, it should help it. Plus wheel toe, don't negative, yeah, and it will help it transition a bit faster. Once again, sway bar, we did that earlier. Spring stiffness, you're not going to touch it. So that's pretty much front suspension, rear suspension, front wheels, rear wheels done. Then I come over here to general, and now we have our suspension and ride height set. We set our wheel width. Now I usually tend to have it so just the edge of the tyre is popping out of the guard, so we'll just plus probably 4 onto that, and as you see the wheels just come out just past the guard. That's a pretty good wide track, and the rear is pretty much spot on as it is, so I'm not going to touch that at all. Then we come to mass. You always want the car as light as possible. You never increase the mass. And I'll just quickly pop over to brakes. Always put maximum poundage to the front, because I like it so it helps when you have to brake drift, where you can just hold the brake and keep the accelerator planted, and it will not lock the front wheels up, but slow the front wheels down, and the rear wheels still can spin, so you can still keep your rear out sideways. But yeah, but it'll slow you down. It's really handy when you're chasing in competition drifts, because if that player all of a sudden slows up, you need to be able to slow it up, but you also need to be able to keep the angle. So that really does come in handy. And if you do need to lock up 4 wheels, you just use the brake and the handbrake, and that leaves you all 4 wheels, and it will bring you to a quicker stop. So then we move on back to general. Center of mass. I don't know if that's supposed to be height or if it's supposed to just be Higgett. This one confused me a bit at first, but after a bit of playing around with it, I think I have it figured out. It really affects your 0 to 100 time. 3.74 now, and if I go all the way 30, it's now 3.69. Doesn't mean the car's always going to handle better. It really depends. It's like a pivot. It helps the car hold the angle. Too much of it, if your car inexplicably just rolls over for no reason, you probably have this set a bit too high. You probably want to drop it a bit. Maximum I usually run is about 29%. As you can see, I lost a bit there in my 0 to 100 time. But that keeps it well balanced, and the car doesn't tend to want to roll over if I hit a medium strip or anything like that, sideways. And now that brings us to the last but not least, the transmission. Now this is one of the hardest things to get right. It can make or break a tune. Get this wrong and it doesn't matter how well the car handles, it just will not perform. So first thing we want to do is differential locking coefficient. Now that's the rate at which the rear wheels spin. You want the rear wheels spinning all the time at the same speed, so it's always locked 100%. So both wheels locked, spin evenly all the time. And we'll go down to gear shifting delay. Now you don't want a delay when you're gear shifting, you want the gears to be snap fast. So we just go all the way down. We want them as quick as possible. Reverse gear, I don't even touch it. If you want to play with the reverse gear, that's fine, but dropping it down makes the reverse gear longer, and going up makes it higher. And this one was set at 437, so it's pretty high already. Now this gives it to the gears. The first thing we need to do with the gearing is just to see what we've got. Test it. So we go test. Oh, hang on a sec. I'll just hook up my controller. Continue. Put it in first, and we see what happens. Now the gears, they were pretty close. They're a little short. The final drive is almost good. I might just drop it down a little bit to about 380, but the rest are too short, and we'll see how they go. With your final drive, it's pretty close to where you need it set from Pro to Free. You don't want to stray too far from it. It just all depends how freely the wheels spin. And to help you 0 to 100's time, now we're going down to 344 just by that little drop. So now what we want to do, to help you 0 to 100 time, we want first gear to go to 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles per hour. So we just keep making first gear longer. Have a look. 344, we've still got a bit more we can go. 345, still 344. We're at 235 and we're at 326. So we just found first gear hitting 100 kilometers an hour, just took off that extra time. So now we just go back a couple to make sure we didn't overdo it a little bit. 40, yeah, still going. 44, so it's about here somewhere. 40, 240, so we go 326. So now we go So now we have first gear set. So now we want to see how freely it revs. Pretty good. Pretty good. That's what you want from first gear. Now second gear was a bit short from memory. So first gear went to 106. We want the second gear to go about 160. So we hit this to about, we'll try 170, and we'll see what happens. We're about 150. So we'll probably go 160. That's about right, and second gear was still revving freely, but not as hard as first gear. So you want them to gradually stop revving as freely. So third gear is set at 148. I think that's not going to be long enough. Yeah, third gear goes to about 170. We want third gear to about 190 at least. So open it up a little bit. We'll try 130 and we'll see what happens. It's about 190 there, and this is kilometers per hour, remember, so if you're in miles per hour you will have to adjust to that. So we're still 326, 0 to 100 time. So now we got third gear pretty much roundabouts where it's got to be. Let's try and get fourth gear in. We bring fourth gear in, you can see that dramatically. See 240, and then there's an 80, 0.8 of a gap to second gear, and then the gap goes down to 0.5 of a gap. See how they're gradually getting smaller? The gears are gradually, they get taller. That's how you want it. So we'll try 117. So that's about what, a 0.13 difference there. So we'll try that. My third gear was a bit too much still. So we need to lengthen third a bit more. So go to 25. And we're gonna have to drop fourth down. We'll try 1.5 difference between fourth, and we'll try a 0.07 of the difference between fourth and fifth. See if we can get it. Oh. Just go back to that. We're still at 3.26, 0 to 100 time. First gear, and we'll just run through all the gears and see what happens. Thinking, just notice how first and second were very fast, and there was a bit of a hesitation when I hit third. We'll just watch that again. So you can see there it hesitated going in the first. Now some might think you put third gear, sorry. Some might say you need to shorten third gear. Well, what we actually need to do, we need to lengthen second just a little bit more. So we go to second gear and just go 5 more. And now we'll see the gears should, as you go through, the gears should be the first gear should be really fast, second gear should be a little bit slower, third gear slower again until it just holds its spot in the rev range. See how we go. It's looking good. We lost that hesitation in third. Fifth, it's still free and not flowing nicely. Not too overly revvy. Not hitting rev limiter, not bouncing off it crazy. Throw it in there, it's holding itself. The gears, see how the gears are just holding in the rev range. Going around. It's feeling pretty good. yeah, that's looking pretty good. Looks pretty well balanced. The gears feel nice. They do rev freely, but not over. You don't want to be bouncing off rev limiter constantly. If you're bouncing off rev limiter, the car's not accelerating, and you will notice the points difference. So you want it so the car's freely accelerating, but not bouncing off rev limiter. Well, there guys, there you go. The car's set, and now what I do, I'll just take it out and I'll try it on Red Rock, because Red Rock will show me if there's any flaws in my tune. So I hit exit. You like to save changes? Yes, I would. Settings. Quickly just go to Red Rock. And now we'll just give it a test. Alright, we'll see how she feels. And you'll get up the speed. Right into the first corner, a bit early into this first corner. Still held it across the dirt, didn't spin it out. We've grabbed the front end a bit there, bit of a backwards. She held it still. The car's well balanced, it's not wanting to over rotate. A little bit hot into this corner. Whoop, I'm going to pay for it here. That's my fault, that's not the tune. I was a bit overzealous at the corner beforehand. We'll get back into it. Car's feeling nice and balanced, it's not over rotating. Getting enough angle into the corner. It's not, it feels really good over the bumps. It's not too stiff. Soaking up the bumps, a little bit off into the dirt there. This will test it. No, didn't want to over rotate there in the dirt. It was well balanced. Yeah. Feeling like we're on the money. Like I said, if it's over rotating too much, I'd go and turn the Acrobat Angle down. Or if it was too grippy, I could always lower the tyre profile, but having to adjust the gears to get that 0 to 100 time back again. Alright guys, that's it. I hope it helps you out. That's my tuning video. If you have any questions or anything, just send it to my Discord. Otherwise, I'm DoriJunkie, and I'll see you on the track.